Here's Cretan Stitch, and these are also examples of Cretan Stitch. Let's look into how to make the stitch, and then I'll go into some different ways that you can use it. So this is a loop stitch, and I'm going to show it between two parallel lines, but you can make it in all kinds of shapes. It's just easiest to show it this way in a very regular way. And first I'll show it right-handed. Now you notice, all right, I've got a top and a bottom line. I'm going to be stitching. You can stitch first from the top line or first from the bottom line. It doesn't matter, because I'm always going to be switching back and forth, stitching top to bottom and then bottom to top. Now, usually when you have two parallel lines, you have to decide which line to start on. I like to start between the two lines. I think it just gives a nicer symmetrical look. So what I'm doing is I'm starting, in this case, on the top, and I'm just taking a little bite of the fabric. Just for reference, these are a 1/2 inch apart. So since it's a loop stitch, you always have to look for the fact that you'll be pulling the thread, pulling the needle over the thread. That's the first loop. And since I'm working right-handed, I'm going left to right. So now I'm going bottom to top, taking a little bite out of the fabric. The needle is going over the thread. And now you can start to see that Cretan stitch taking shape. So if my spacing, is a 1/2 inch, you've got to keep in mind that these are a 1/2 inch apart. There's like a top part and a bottom part, and you have to kind of consider that in the spacing. Sometimes it's closer and more spread out than what you're planning on. And obviously I'm showing it here in the very tidy configuration, but it can be really fun to, taper this down and you can change the spacing on this a lot. So I think you can see how that's forming. You can imagine what a nice border that is, of course. So let's look at making it left-handed. We just stitched left to right for the right-handed people. So now, of course, we have to go right to left when we're stitching left-handed. Just for consistency, I'll again start on the top. We're going top to bottom and just coming over the thread. So that's my first loop. And here's my next loop. You have to keep track of your thread so that you always make sure that you're going over the thread. And you can already see it's starting to take shape. And you can see what will make some variety here. Obviously the spacing, but also the depth of the bite that you take. So if I take a bigger bite, I'll do that on the next one after you can see how this is taking shape. If I take a big bite, and let's say I go from here all the way down to the center, just so you can see what happens. Now I'm not really making Cretan stitch anymore. Now I'm making a buttonhole stitch. So you can see how those stitches are related. I'm doing a buttonhole stitch now where I'm just flipping back and forth, from one side to the other. So the loop stitches are all interrelated. Now if I wanted to do it on this, filling something like this with a leaf, I'm still stitching top to bottom, but I no longer have parallel lines. But I'm always keeping track of the loop, and I can make this spacing now quite close together. It makes a really attractive way to fill in a leaf. I can really pack these in if I want to see more of my background. I can do it that way. And I'm working with a variegated thread here. It's going to get a really pretty effect when I'm finished. You can use an embroidery needle, which I have here. I had a chenille needle earlier. It really just depends on what thread you're using and what kind of fabric you're going through. So that gives you an idea of how to make the stitch. And look at all the variety you can do with it. Here it is in a little, like if you were doing a curved border, there's another leaf. Here the stitches are packed closer together. This is more like the spacing that I used earlier. And then, okay, that's the buttonhole again. Here's one where I've laced another thread through it. And here's 2 rows of Cretan stitch. And I've got knots and lazy daisies and running stitches in between them. So it's a stitch that has those compartments that I like, and you can put a lot of other stitches with it. It's great for crazy quilting, but it's also wonderful for making a more organic shape or just for putting a tidy border on something.